I'm going to call this meeting to order, and our first order of business tonight is the public hearing. We're going to we have the proposed bylaw changes and amendments to the town plan. We have copies when you came in, and our rules of procedure are going to be everyone who would like to will have an opportunity to speak. And you wait to be recognized by the chair, which is me, and speak loudly and clearly so everyone can hear you. And if you begin to repeat or recycle, I'll maybe nudge you along. After everyone who wants to speak has had a chance, then we can go around if you want to add something, a second round. We'll go ahead and do that. At some point, we'll close the public hearing and proceed with our regular select board meeting. At some point this evening, we'll discuss the bylaws and the amendment to the town plan, and we'll possibly vote on it later this evening. Or we'll postpone it, but we'll find out when we get there. And just to introduce everyone, start over here.
Bill Holliday.
Steve Glayback.
I'm Zeke Goodband.
I'm Joe Cook.
Louis White.
And we are the select board here in Dummerston. And I guess just the only other thing is, which I hardly need to mention here, but we'll just ask for your cooperation as we conduct this hearing with civility and respect for each other. And with that, the public hearing is open, and if anyone cares to speak, we also, because the bylaw changes were warned first on the warning, we procedurally we need to discuss those first. So if anyone would like to speak to the first item on the bylaw changes. This is the one, section 255, non-conforming use or structure. And you're also under no pressure to speak if you don't want to on a subject. You don't have to make us feel better or worry about our feelings on this. Yes, yes. Ruth Barton?
They do seem to make sense to me.
All right. Any other comments on that first bylaw, section 255? Anyone here?
See, I'm just wondering if anyone from the Planning Commission might just sort of, speak as to why, this is recommended, just for those who might not have been involved. I guess this concerns some smaller, in some of the villages.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Sam,
I'm willing to give it, but I'll keep it brief.
Thank you.
These were the first two pages, section 255 and 616. The amendments to those were requested by the DRB, actually, in their experience with some tricky situations on very small lots. lots that predated zoning, so they might have been a quarter of an acre. And most of the regulations in our zoning bylaw seem to be appropriate for the minimum 2 acre, which is in most of rural residential. So things like the setback requirement were very hard to comply with in a very small lot. So we tried to make allowances for that in these 2 sections. Is that covered?
Well, the second bylaw is for those old houses that are built too close to the road or too close to the property line, which may be on a large lot, like the old farmhouses may be on 100 acres, but they're still pressed right up there on the road or right next to the border, under, you know, the abutter. So it was an attempt to help those people do, you know, basic addition. Or no, that one's for that's for adding
Buildings?
buildings.
Small buildings?
Yeah, that's for adding accessory structures.
And then the third one, section 715, was a request from the select board to look at whether the requirement to have a sitting planning commissioner also be sitting on a seat of the development review board, and we thought that we could get along without that requirement, so that's what the change is there, removing that requirement.
So, Ruth Barton?
Does anyone know why that requirement to have someone on the planning commission on the DRB was put in there in the first place?
I think I do.
Okay.
There is, I think it probably came from me and Reggie, who were both on both commissions, and there is a gap in understanding, but the gap is not on the DRB, it's on the Planning Commission, of the consequences when the zoning bylaws really, the rubber hits the road. And there had been a long period of nobody being on both commissions to understand what would happen. And so I think the Planning Commission often didn't understand, you know, why this was needed or that was needed. So at that point, it seemed logical to have a couple of people on both, 1 or 2 people on both boards. But right now, it's not the same way because there are people on the Planning Commission that have experience on the DRB. So that connection is really not needed right now. But that's how it happened because of a long time where neither board understood how the changes the Planning Commission might make really impacted people in reality.
Another point might be that our zoning administrator, Charlotte, actually attends both meetings quite often, so there already is sort of a liaison between the 2 boards. It's asking quite a bit of somebody, too, to participate in both of those particular positions.
Then I have one more small question. If you adopt this amendment, that would not preclude someone from being on both boards. It just means that you don't have to have someone on both boards.
That's correct.
So if in the future you felt you needed to have somebody on both boards, you could twist somebody's arm that's on one board or the other to join the other one.
Yeah, we twisted a lot of arms. But this would not prevent someone from serving on both boards. So, do we have any comments on section 616? Or do we have any comments on the one we were just talking about, the DRB and the Planning Commission, section 715? Then, if there are no more comments on those, let's go on to the town plan amendment, which is dealing with the corridors, Route 30 and Route 5. And let's do Route 30 first. Route 30. And anyone need any history on this? You've sort of been working on these corridors one way or another since about 2009 when the town plan was really getting going. So, anyone who has maps, here's one up here. Anyone like to comment on the Route 30 corridor map? Some changes since the last public hearing that the Planning Commission held was we added a little bit of rural commercial down by the store. I know it is Lou's store, but I'm not sure what it's called really.
Circle K.
Circle K. I think that's the only change we made on this map from the hearing that the Planning Commission had. Well, okay. You probably aren't interested in Route 5 then. You weren't interested in the bottom of the meeting.
So just skip it.
We're probably all here to talk about something else. Okay, so well, you know, gee whiz, we've got plenty of time tonight. Let's talk about Route 5. Anyone have anything to say about Route 5? Claudia Teachman, and rather than have me introduce everyone, if you stand and tell everyone your name, just in case I don't know it. I don't want to.
My name is Claudia Teachman. I am also speaking on behalf of my husband Dave Blocker, whose employment precludes him from being present at any evening meeting. I forgot my reading glasses. I have a written statement. I hope I can read it. I'm here to ask you to please reconsider the revisions to the Route 5 corridor zoning that have occurred since the Route 5, Route 30 Corridor Committee turned in their recommendations. After having read the town plan, attended almost all of the Planning Commission meetings in 2013, and several select board meetings, it is my educated opinion that the parcels removed from rural commercial zoning did not need to come out because it doesn't support anything in particular in the town plan. Specifically, we would like our property on Poplar Commons to stay in rural commercial. We are concerned that removing the rural commercial zoning designation could negatively affect the value of our property should we ever need to refinance or sell. The property that we live on has only recently supported a residence. Less than 30 years ago, it and other several adjacent properties served the town in a variety of commercial and agricultural uses. Our property is not visible from the Route 5 scenic byway, and therefore could, in the future, be an ideal location for a small commercial venture that would provide much-needed jobs for local people. Zoning our property as residential will restrict our options and possibly cause us financial hardship. We also have a concern about the rezoning, since our property is being put into a zoning district which, if I'm not mistaken, has not existed before in Dummerston. The Planning Commission is currently still working on the specifications, setbacks, allowed and conditional uses for existing and new zoning districts. We feel that changing our property zoning designation at this point is presumptive and inappropriate. Removing so many parcels in general from rural commercial potentially leaves Dummerston residents with a very heavy tax burden and could create significant financial hardship for those with fixed incomes. Having attended so many meetings, I have seen that a precedent has been set where numerous property owners have been granted their request to either remain in or be taken out of various zoning designations. We are asking for the same consideration that has been given to them. Thank you. Claudia Tiefman and Dave Blocker.
Can I ask a question? How many, what size is your lot?
We have 1 acre and a third.
Okay. Okay.
We have road frontage on Poplar Commons and on Carpenter Road.
Yeah.
Claudia, I have a question too. Were you speaking for yourself and David or for the Poplar Commons group?
I have to say that I'm speaking for myself and on our property specifically. The other homeowners in Poplar Commons, some are elderly, some are not. Everybody's very disillusioned about the process. Let's put it that way. And nobody, they feel like it's tilting at windmills to ask for it to have a change, so they're not putting their energy into this. We've already had significant energy from our development was put into the whole gravel pit thing, and that turned out a little differently than we expected too. And I think everybody's just really tired. It's full-time employment, people work evenings, people are going to graduate school, people just don't have the energy to go do another thing. And I think they're really disillusioned to a certain extent by what happened with the gravel pit.
I did hear from one other resident who was okay with the changes in the proposal.
Deborah Titus?
Yes?
Could
would
I
you like to
just
speak?
ask you to first speak to the changes that you made?
Okay, sure. The changes that we made from the Planning Commission last hearing. Let's see, starting at the north end, Putney. We didn't do much up at that end. We found some state land between Route 5 and Route 91 that it's owned by the state, and we just put that into resource because there's nothing we can do with it. Going down, we extended that, putting that in resource, McNamara property and I don't know his name.
Charlie Dunn.
Okay. That was included in resource.
Charlie Dunn is in resource?
Yeah.
Not now.
Well,
He will be.
Yeah. These are you asked for our changes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I was just clarifying.
Okay, going down, let's see, south of East-West Road, we put that to the north edge of the Verizon property, and then going down to include the trailer park. We put that into residential. We switched the Barrett property on the east side of Route 5, the Barrett property. We put on the Planning Commission's map, that was in resource, and Walker Farm was in rural commercial. And we flipped that to rural commercial for the Barrett property and resource for the Walker Farm, or that section of the Walker Farm. Going down, we put the Popple Commons and that would be Lee Borofsky's property and Hamill's property on Route 5 in residential.
And the Danforth.
Okay. And going down on the corner of Middle Road and Route 5, we took a piece out of rural commercial there and put it into rural. That includes it's the Wendell's property and let's see, is it Bird is,
Birds
Yeah.
and, I'm not sure of the person on the corner.
yeah, and put that into rural. Those are the only changes I recall making.
I'd like to say I believe it's slightly misleading because the planning commission's what do you call it, proposal for the rezoning is just simply a proposal. The Barrett property was rural commercial, and as was the Mannix property.
Yes, I'm,
And
right,
and so I think that needs to be clarified, that they all, that whole area was rural commercial. The planning commission went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth, and finally, after the Barretts had attended many meetings and written a letter, they gave the Barretts, I think, 1,000-foot buffer, and that's how the
Along
plan
Station
came
Road.
to you.
right.
But the Barretts were still, that still was not what they were requesting.
Mhm.
And I believe then they subsequently wrote at least a letter and attended at least one select board meeting reiterating their request
Mhm.
for the zoning of their property.
Right. Right, but those are the changes that we made with the maps that we got from the planning commission. Yes,
Hi, I'm Deborah Titus,
yes,
and I may be mistaken about this, but I run around with my maps because, as most people know, Sweet Tree Farm is conserved by the Land Trust, with the exception of 3 parcels that are not included in the Land Trust conservation. So it looks, when we went to the planning board with the maps, we went through those and just asked that those be zoned differently to set them apart from the rest of the property. One is a clay pit, the other is the sugar house, and the third is a little house that's been part of the farm, not part of the farm, whatnot. So it looks to me like those parcels that had been broken out and put into rural commercial are now back in resource. Is that true? Or am I
let's
not
see,
reading
we did the
map?
clay pit, we extended the clay pit. The other changes were made by the planning commission and forwarded to us. We thought the clay pit actually would fit under that resource section. And let's see, with let me find my copy here. Among the draft that the where's all those papers?
With the planning commission proposal?
Yeah. No, I'm looking for, hold on.
Okay.
I've got copies here someplace. Here. Okay. Under their draft of what allowed uses and conditional uses, having, houses or agritourism, or there are quite a few uses that we thought would be okay for what you are doing at Sweet Tree Farm. And we thought your actual restrictions or your deed with the
Land trust. We
Yeah.
have a lot of restrictions.
Yeah,
as we
might
farm.
be more
We
restrictive
don't
than
need
anything that
Dummerston's
the town
restrictions.
could come up with.
Excuse me?
Might be more restrictive than anything that the town would
Right,
come up with.
exactly.
Yeah,
That's why those 3 excluded parcels, it just is nice to have them zoned differently. My other question is, why is Seymour's rural and not resource? Alan Seymour.
do you want to speak to that?
Boy, I think that goes way back to the corridor committee itself. And I think when the corridor committee was working on this, there wasn't quite such an overall pressure to put things in resource, I guess, and we thought that that might stand to be developed a little more than resource might let somebody develop it, but did take it out of rural commercial. But that extended way back to the original Porter study group.
And I believe one of your houses is in that section too, right? What the house that you're talking about is in that section there.
Well, yeah, it borders, and so,
Well, I think it's actually on, if you look on the map that's up there, the house is in that rural.
oh, it's in rural.
Is in that rural
Oh, I
section.
see. Oh, I see. Oh, I
Okay.
see that little finger there.
Yeah.
Okay.
That would be the house part of it.
Now, the map that we got from the planning commission didn't have your sugar house. Do you want to address that?
No, that actually did get changed before the final public hearing.
Oh.
And yeah, I think it was a 5-4 vote. I can't, in other words, it wasn't a unanimous decision, so I really can't speak for the planning commission. There were a number of decisions we made where people thought differently about it. So, you know, I could give arguments on both sides of that one if you want.
One thing that I think that we thought about too was that anything that you might be using your sugar house for, anything from the sugar house or the lovely little shop that you have, is all allowable under your agricultural designation. In any case, it didn't really need a separate zone, that you could do pretty much what you want.
Unless I decide to start selling sandwiches or something out of there. And
Well, I don't know, you might even get sandwiches, depends on what you put in them. Throw the lettuce or something. But, as Sam said, you know, it may not have been a unanimous vote, but it seemed like a perfectly obvious accessory use for agriculture.
Yes.
Deborah Titus again, just to go on record again, and I've said it again and again, I don't like that word resource.
Oh, it's being called
Productive
Productive
farmland?
land.
productive land.
Thank you, thank you. I had heard rumors to that effect, and I'm delighted.
Right.
However, that's not part of this change. That change was not made to the town plan, so we're stuck with resource in the town plan for this this update.
So we can just amend the town plan whenever it does.
Next time around.
Yes.
So my name is Tammy McNamara. I'm here on behalf of myself and also my husband, Sonny Rosa. We are actually one of the tiny little parcels along Route 5. We own 2 acres just north of Sweet Tree Farm on the 91 side of Route 5. And we're zoned rural commercial in a little envelope along with the meat shack at Sweet Tree Farm. When we purchased our property and also through the meetings, of which I attended 3 of them, and at all 3 meetings, and again this evening, I would just like to go on record opposing rezoning our property as resource. This is not productive farmland. It is 2 acres with a little house. My neighbors to the north sell firewood. My neighbors to the south are Sweet Tree Farm. And my concerns mirror a lot of what you so eloquently stated. You know, we're a young family. We live in Dummerston. We bought this property. We might not live there forever. You know, and we would like to retain the value that we put into our property. And you know, for you guys, it's a tiny little parcel of land, and it might not mean anything to you. You want this whole block to be green. But my father is actually a real estate agent, and he said to me that that will limit our ability to sell this property, and it may decrease our property value. And I'm very concerned about that, and I'm not sure that I'm being heard, because I feel like I've stated this a number of times. I don't have a lot of spare time to come to meetings, and through this whole process, I've tried to stay on top of it. But, you know, I've stated this again and again, it's not a big property, it's not like we're going to put in a McDonald's, but I would like to have more options in terms of what we can do with that property, seeing as we are right on the highway, and also in terms of our resale value. Thank you for listening.
Does anyone want to speak to that? My recollection of putting it in resource was because it was a standalone rural commercial piece. And looking at the draft that we're getting from the planning commission, it looked like you would be able to have, a business there, even if it was in resource.
But an agricultural-based business, is that correct?
A what?
An agricultural-based business, is that
No,
correct?
no, you could have,
Homes.
they haven't finished going through the productive lands list, but do you want to?
Well, I think
I
The
can read that.
state of Vermont prohibits zoning from any home business is allowed. Any business out of the home within certain reasonable limits. So anywhere that we allow a single-family home, which is in all districts, we also allow home business. So I don't know if that's what you were driving at.
Can I just speak real
Sure,
quickly to the
sure.
standalone piece?
Yeah.
We were not a standalone originally on the original map. We were
Right, right.
incorporated with the clay pit. And I'm also standing by my neighbors and saying, I ask you to listen to them as well, because I think they have some very valid concerns. But we weren't a standalone. We were with the sugar
Right.
shack and the clay
Right.
pit. We
It
weren't,
was all rural.
right, but then
Right.
they were changed and then we were changed at a later date by a different committee. Is that correct? So it's kind of odd.
Is there a reason going from rural commercial back to resource on those pieces?
Let's see. Yeah, trying to break up the rural commercial so it's not just one continuous strip of rural commercial.
It was a little, it was a little
It was a little,
piece,
little
contiguous.
piece. Yeah. Yeah.
So that makes it harder for anybody to move and put a business in the rural commercial.
Excuse me, sir? Could you state your name for everybody? I know you came in a little late, but we asked that you be recognized by the chair
Okay.
before you speak, and say your name so everybody knows it.
Ellis Dare Jr. And I'm just going to state the fact that I totally agree with everything that this lady had to say. On our parcel of land, which is on the east side of the interstate, that was rural commercial at one time, and that seems to be moving into resource. And I don't really agree with that. And when you're saying you don't want to string these rural commercial lands together, it's going to make it a lot harder for the person that wants to develop that rural commercial land to develop it, because the abutting land is going to take away from compatibility. Is that correct?
Like.
Yeah. So that's really taking some of the rights away from the landowner and their options as a landowner to maybe do what they feel they need to do with their land. Right?
Right.
Yeah. Actually, I think you misspoke a little bit. It's not west of 91. It isn't east of 91. It's west of 91, right? The piece you're talking about.
No, it's east.
On the riverside.
Or Riverside. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Yeah. Hers is on the other side. Ours is on the east side.
Okay. Another thing was that rural commercial, I guess the present zoning is, it's supposed to be a 4-acre piece. So,
Charlie Titus, wouldn't these pieces be grandfathered in though? Isn't the 4 acres something new?
no.
No. That's always been?
Yeah, it's been there a long time.
In rural commercial, 4
Yeah.
acres for a commercial
Yeah.
development.
Yeah.
2 acres for a residential development.
I thought we were changing it to 2 though.
Oh, we're talking about it, but
Yeah.
it hasn't changed yet.
Mr. Goodyear, my name's Dave Lane, and I was just considering, has anyone given them thought to entertain the homeowners or people who want, they don't want this change? I've been in Dummerston since 1947, and I haven't seen much change at all. First, we sold our property for Art Kieran and Texaco, which is JV Auto. Nothing in that corridor has changed, precisely, other than the old sawmill that used to be where Circle K is. And now you haven't got the ski area bringing in any tax money. Now I'm on Route 5, and I was just wondering the concern of these homeowners that you're changing from rural commercial to residential or resource.
I guess the purpose of a public hearing is to hear from these people, and then that will inform, the decisions that we make.
Claudia Teachman, I think a lot of these people were at the corridor committee public meetings, and I saw time and time again, as at the meetings that I've participated in there, and then also at subsequent planning commission meetings, that the same people kept on coming and requesting the same consideration. Or they came to one meeting, requested a certain consideration, and thought, okay, they had the impression that they had said their piece, that they had been heard, and that it was okay now. And I think these people I think some of us are really disappointed that we followed this process for almost 3 years. And we're still saying the same thing. We're still requesting the same consideration, and it's not being granted. I don't know, some people it's being granted to and some people it isn't, and sometimes it seems very arbitrary.
Mark Whitaker. I want to use some maps in my presentation. Could I stand up front or over on the side here? Let's get through here. My bullet coming through. Yeah. I've been involved with this procedure for a long time. I was a member, one of the civilian members of the corridor committee and whatnot. And I've looked at the town plan numerous times. And on page 15, our town plan has a little blurb of rural commercial property. And what our town plan is calling for on negative impact should be minimized by shared access points, increased landscaping, and sign control. It says absolutely nothing about rezoning. My point is there's many, many other tools to restrict anything in this town other than zoning. And if anybody in public office has not heard the message loud and clear, they aren't listening or paying attention, or they don't care. But less zoning, the better. That's been the loudest voice I've heard over 10 years now. On page 68 and 69, commerce and industry goals. The goal is to support and promote the town's current economic base to retain existing employment opportunities and increase availability of good quality employment opportunities. With all this being taken out, that's not supported with that. That map does not support this. Policy 1.2, encourage appropriate new businesses to locate in Dummerston. How you doing that? You're not. 1.3, provide assistance and support Dummerston's existing businesses. A little bit. A little bit. I'll give you the credit there. Just doesn't appear that this proposal in front of us tonight contributes to any of the above that I mentioned. As a matter of fact, it works against it. I don't see you trying to promote balance in town. You just keep taking stuff away. You take stuff away. You restrict people. Now, back in 2005, we had this map, currently known as the leopard map. And the reason was, rural residential was along the roads, because that's where the houses go, along the roads. The green spots are the hills, mountains, valleys, rocks, ledges, and trees that you don't normally build on, because it's bad land. So that's conservation and reserve land. We had to change this map according to people, because it wasn't politically correct. Didn't say there was anything wrong with it, it just wasn't politically correct. They preach continuity. They wanted connecting landings. You want to connect the conservation pieces. So in 2010, they brought us this. Now I ask you, how much resident and stuff have we already forfeited? There's a hell of a lot of green on this map. And the people, such as myself, that think along the lines of myself, have really made quite a sacrifice and compromise. And we're looking for the same now with the corridors. It's the only rural commercial property we have in town. They're located on 2 state highways. What a better deal. All our high traffic volume on state highways, we don't have to maintain the roads. The state does it. It's a great tax break for us. And if you're not going to let them go on those corridors, where are you going to let them go? We worked hard on our committee. We listened to people. We had a lot of meetings, made a lot of notes. And when we were said and done, our committee proposed this map. Nice map. You know what? We didn't hear one landowner complain about what we did. Not one. That's not what I'm hearing tonight. Somewhere between this and that, things have gone wrong. Now, there's been some requests selectively granted to some property owners, such as parcel 394 and 793. They were asked to be yanked from rural commercial. Select board obliged. That's what it represents here. Unfortunately, parcels 392, 394, 833.1, 832, and 390, their proposals to remain the way they were rejected. And I think without a legitimate reason. People talk about empty threats. They use the fear factor that we're going to have strict development. I say BS to that. Our zoning's been since '78, I believe. If there's an eyesore, nobody's yet to point that out to me. I haven't seen gross commercial growth. So, I think you've gone overboard on Route 5, absolutely. I cannot stand and will not stand behind that map. If you're gonna request, landowners request, don't pick and choose who you do. That's old school, old boy school that we tried to get away from 10 years ago. I've done my best to stay away from it. I will play that way if you continue down this path. It's wrong. It's wrong. Thank you.
I'm Mike Barrett. So I've been about all these meetings, and I strongly agree with what he just said. I think I pointed out time and time again, you look at this map and over 80% of it's already in conservation, resource, rural. What we need to be preserving is our rural commercial. And I agree, I think you don't have a better place to do it than to strip right up through there. So, for what it is.
Right. On Route 5, there's 997 acres in rural commercial.
Yeah, but how much is not?
Let's see. 400 acres is taken up just by the right-of-way,
Yeah.
the state right-of-way. There are 65 acres in conservation. There are 548 in resource. 356 is what Sweet Tree Farm is.
Yeah. What I'm saying is for commercial development.
Wait. There are 87 acres in rural. There are 106 acres in rural residential. There will be 141 acres in residential. And then the 997 acres in rural commercial and industrial.
Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, can you tell us how many acres there are in the town of Dummerston?
I think there are about 19,000 some.
850.
Yeah.
So about a fifth of our land is rural commercial. Yeah.
I'm giving you the figure for the Route 5 corridor, which is what we're addressing tonight.
I understand. Our town as a whole, our town doesn't live on Route 5. We have other places that we do stuff.
Claudia Teachman, I suspect from what I'm seeing here that, at least in this version of the map, a significant portion of what's remaining in rural commercial belongs to Ford Houghton and to Mr. Houghton and to Nelson Gilson. And I suspect that if either of them would attempt to put in rural commercial anything or some commercial venture in there, there would be, it seems like there would be significant opposition to that from the Dummerston townspeople. So in effect, that's agricultural land that's still left in rural commercial currently, but I suspect there would be such loud opposition. I think it's not really quite valid to consider that as an option for rural commercial. It looks like it on the map, but I think it might not really be.
We're proposing to leave it as rural commercial.
I understand that. However, I think that if they tried to put something in there, there would be such significant opposition, they might have their hands tied.
People might not like it, but it's their land. And if this map were to be approved as rural commercial.
I think you make, right there, it's their own land. You've got, Terry Chapman, you've got taxpayers here that are owning this land begging you to keep it the way it is. And I don't know what the problem is. I've gone to enough of these meetings, the corridor meetings, I keep hearing the same thing. I'm not affected by this on 5 or 30, but I am affected by these people who are begging you and have been for as many meetings that I've gone to as to keep it the way it is. And they're paying taxes. We're going to have some business in this town, or we're an aging population. How are we going to keep paying higher taxes? You know, I wish, it's amazing how I'm shocked that it's kind of, you guys are just woof on this. And this is year after year after year.
Brenda Davis. This is a written statement, and I hope I can get it across smoothly and not chop it up, but thinking on the same terms as everyone else in the room. And I'm not really affected by this at this point. I was earlier and worried, but I do want to support my neighbors, and I do want to support the fact that I don't think our town is broken. I think the state of Vermont and the town plan, they look for grants. The state gives us money if we do what they say, and strip development, and the idea came from the state, I think, not wanting a strip, but I think us people are pretty smart and we know what we're doing here. There's also the village, who is a very clustered group of residents, and so we're a clustered group of, you know, commercial lovers over on the other side, and we're happy there. We compromise with that road. That's a really, there's definitely a compromise living on Route 5. So if you say 4 acres is what you need, so that doesn't matter, because someday she can sell her land, and maybe if I live next to her, I'd say, hey, you know, that's great, because I wanted to develop this great idea, whatever it is, and I'll have to go to the DRB and all of you people, or whoever's there, and we will be scrutinized, because we have a great ability to write in the bylaws what can and can't happen. Even though we call it, you know, rural commercial, it's really not, because Dummerston has a vision. That vision is probably going to be honored by anyone who moved to this town. I'm going to make a point that probably my children can't afford to live in Dummerston, because if you make less than $50,000, you're going to live in a junk house, a fixer-upper, well, not maintained. You won't be able to afford 4 acres and build on it. So there is definitely, with Shumlin and everybody else in the legislature saying, we do need to protect Vermont, to have some place for our children to grow their families and have their businesses. And so we're a small community in the rural setting, we love it, but we still need commercial. We can't depend on Brattleboro, and some of us don't want to leave. I don't want to leave my house, I have a home business, I love it, I don't even want to leave. I'll drive to Putney before I drive to Brattleboro. It'd be nice to have a little community like Putney. I would love to see the village expand a little more. have a little breakfast, snook over there, I'd go over there. But I have no reason to drive over there right now. So my money goes into Putney. Let's put our money back in our town. As Dummerston looks forward to preserve the character of the town and the land we share, I encourage us all to remember to preserve the balance between commercial, which provides security for our future, as much as the farms and resource do. Much focus has been on Route 5 and Route 30, and we need to diversify for our business, farms, and family homesteads. We all, in this world right now, in the economy we live in, we need diversity. We need choices. And I do support minimal restrictions on zoning bylaws, and I do think that we need to write those descriptions before we zone, because I don't even know what it is anymore that we can and can't do. And I think that's a real big fear factor, and it's a real one. It's not made up. Landowners need opportunities to grow and create a rural lifestyle. In this economic times and changing with the times, leave homeowners choices. And like Mark said, you know, Route 5 and Route 30 is perfect. You know, there's a cost there in maintaining those roads. And the state police come to my house. They've been there. They won't come. They'll come to my house because it's on Route 5. Nobody has to worry about protecting Route 5 or Route 30 because the state police have to do that. Sure, we pay taxes to do that, but we don't pay it in Dummerston. We don't have to put that out. There's a lot of arbitrary zoning going on, I feel, and there's a conflict of interest. When you start putting residential next to rural commercial, it happened in the Marble Quarry, Poplar Commons. It happened, I think the trailer park is at risk. Sweet Tree Farm is at risk. There's residential sprawl. There's not business sprawl, there's residential sprawl. And right now, that's causing a conflict of interest. Because every neighbor, when Marble Quarry wanted to start up again, wouldn't let them. Maple Valley. They can't do anything. These neighbors moved in, knew it was a business, but now we don't want lights, we don't want anything. So don't put any residential over Route 5 because it's the only place we have. You're not giving us anywhere else. It's not us, the landowners, it's us, the people. You know, Shumlin said, you know, let's have community, let's have trust. I don't trust Dummerston anymore, and I'm a rural landowner. I love the rural Vermont. I'm a born native Vermonter. I'm not moving. I'm not moving, and I tell you what, sometimes I want to just bear arms and come to these meetings with no bullets. I'll leave them home, but I'll bring my rifle and tell you guys, listen up, will you? Because Dummerston did it. When they were the town of Fulham, they fought back. And they, as a town, fought back and got their rights back. This is passionate. This makes me mad. I think you should be ashamed to not think of the people who live here. Nature is beautiful. I love nature. And I love places like Alaska, but we have to balance nature and nurture and human beings. You can't take it all and give it all to one direction. If we're a scenic byway, then where are the tourists paying my taxes? What are they doing? Because if maybe we get some businesses and I'll stop and see them, you know, let's get some business there so they'll stop in and some people can put back through the taxes. But just so that it can be pretty is not a good reason. I think we can keep it pretty. So I don't support these changes. I see that there's been a lot of work, and I know that there's a select board member that has rode both sides, and I see that so many people have changed and come and gone in these committees in the last 3 years. But what I really see is that we really need to stick to what the people want and to have more trust in the people. Because you people are going to come and you're going to go. And we had that happen when the last planning commission proposed something that didn't really work out. I don't think that means that we need sergeant of arms in our elected officials. I think we need the sergeant of arms in the people to listen, and that it would be a lot better place to live for all of us. Thank you.
In response to a small part of that, I'm offended to be told that I don't care about the people of the town of Dummerston. Whether or not I or we agree with everyone in this room or not, that's all we care about, is the health of this town and the people in it. All of them, not 1, 2, 3, or 4. And I'll make an analogy that I used to use with parents in my coaching days. When I would hold a meeting before a season started and sit the parents down and say, I'm the coach of this team, and there are 12 players, and I'm with them every day, trying to mold them into something constructive and productive. And your interest, and I don't mean this directed at you personally, but to anyone in the room, a lot of what we've heard today is your personal interest, but that reminds me of parents, and I would say to parents, you care about your child first and foremost, and we wouldn't be human if we didn't. But my job is to care about the team, and in this analogy, the team is this town. So I do take offense to the one part of that statement, rather, that we don't collectively care about the people in this town.
I don't think I said that, Bill, but I apologize if you heard it that way.
All right, thanks.
I'm Deborah Titus. I'm here to get educated as much as to make a comment, because I tried to look at the town plan, and then I tried to look at the state guidelines on zoning, and then, you know, I'm here looking at the changes in zoning, and you know, we're from away, so they do things differently where we're from. So it still is a process of us trying to understand this. So when I looked at the town plan, I noticed in red that there's like an overlay proposal for the zoning. It was in red in the town plan. And so, or was I looking at the wrong town plan? I was in Dummerston.
There was a version of the town plan that did have overlays on Route 5.
It was in red, like it was an amendment.
Okay, settlements like Slab Hollow and West Dummerston Village, they have an overlay of red too.
You had conservation ones too that were green. That would have been going over some of Sweet Tree Farms property.
Well, that's what I wondered.
Yeah, there was a conservation overlay going down Canoe Brook. It basically followed the Canoe Brook, and so it was an overlay over some right up by the pit there, your clay pit.
Okay.
There was an overlay over that, and it went. Sorry, I forget the woman's name on it. Tim. It went just about north of her property. It was just north of her property.
So was that an amendment that wasn't approved, or is that in existence, or?
I think it's more an informational. The Conservation Commission was trying to show likely habitat. This was the habitat.
Right. Okay.
So it has no.
But there's no zoning overlay.
No.
Okay.
That's sort of information. That's a roadmap for the bears.
Okay, fine. And my other question is this: which wags the dog? Does the town plan inform zoning? But if you want to change zoning, you change the town plan. Yes? Amend the town plan? Is there some back and forth on that? Or is that
I'll try to, hopefully I'll speak and make it more clear.
Okay.
You have to always be careful when you ask the planning commission, because I might make it more confusing. But yet, the town plan is supposed to inform zoning. So, we're still sort of working out the fallout from the approved town plan from 2010, and that town plan introduced these new districts, and those haven't made it into zoning yet. Residential, resource, which were in zoning on product plans, and so on. So we, the planning commission, since we've handed this off to the select board, is now trying to do the work in the zoning to bring the zoning compatible to the town plan. So
But then there are amendments to the town plan at times. And when we talk about the 4 acres for rural commercial, then there's a possibility it would be changed to 2 acres.
That's
in the
right.
town-
That's zoning, that's
That's-
not the town
That's
plan.
zoning.
No, that's not
The town plan doesn't have any restriction on,
They don't.
okay.
It's not
So
that
the-
specific.
The town plan has no regulations in it.
It just says keep open space in
It
Dummerston,
has descriptions.
like that.
It has descriptions of these districts. So there are descriptions, but no acreage or uses. That's for zoning.
But it has the overview of we should keep Dummerston open and,
It has a lot of things. I mean,
kinda
Mark,
like that.
Mark read some other things about industry. And, I mean, it has a lot in it.
Right, right.
But they tend to be. It doesn't have regulation.
okay.
Claudia Keach.
Could I speak to you? Just to clarify, switching Popple Commons to residential.
Poplar.
Okay, I grew up calling poplar trees popple. I have a hard time.
We get a sign with the spelling
Okay.
at the end of the road.
I'll have to go there with my reading glasses. But when I go down the list of uses that are allowed in residential and uses that are allowed in rural commercial, for most of the list, the one, you could have an animal hospital as a conditional use in rural commercial. You could have an animal hospital in residential as a conditional use. You could have a building, trade, repair shop in both districts as conditional use. You could have a country inn in both groups. You could have it says you could have a cemetery if you want.
We might.
You could have a B&B. You could have an auto service and repair in both places. You could have you could grow Brussels sprouts commercially if you wanted in both. You could have accessory apartments, accessory use. The one difference between rural commercial and residential is that there's no listing for earth or mineral extraction under residential.
That's my point. You sit on a wonderful bed of gravel, some of it has.
We've been told at other hearings, you sit on ledge, and your septic system and your houses sit on ledge, and that's why you're so concerned about the
And
blasting.
The current gravel pit
Oh,
has a lot of ledge that
wait.
you're
I
blasting.
recognized myself to speak.
Sorry.
Let me finish. Right now, the 9 houses in Poplar Commons, or Popple Commons as we call them, are listed on the grand list at $2.2 million. And that's revenue, the tax is based on that. That's revenue that the town gets. It's the SB Lands, which is a gravel pit owned by the Severances and the fellow across here. It's about the same size, but the assessed value of that is $157,000. And so the town would, also in the town plan, put high priority on preserving residential areas and encouraging residential development and housing for affordable housing for people. So your housing settlement there is a valuable part of the town. I don't think would want to pay $2.2 million for your ledgy, gravelly place. You might want to buy maybe a house as a buffer. We don't know what's going to happen, but he is mining gravel and not gold. So it's a value to your housing areas a resource to the town, really. That might be more important than the gravel, whatever there is underneath it.
It is currently, I agree with you. However, we have some elderly structures there. Should any of them fail, it's a possibility that the homeowners, the 9 home property owners there, would not be able to rally enough funds. We have a small escrow fund, which we've already had to tap into for a significant issue that came up, I think it was 2 years ago. We can handle 1 more of those, that's it. And then everybody's gonna have to be digging very deeply into their pockets. It could end up that we will not be able to exist there as homes. Our water could be, there was an auto salvage yard there for a while. When I moved in 20 plus years ago, there were several big barrels that were leaking a dark, oily substance that we requested that the developer and the landowner remove. I think they were removed. I don't know if they were removed or if they were buried. There could be something seeping in from who knows what, because when people try to put in plants in their yard, they find car parts when they dig down. So who knows what could be slowly seeping down to contaminate the water supply, the single water supply that supplies all of our homes. Should we not be able to drill another well that would support 9 homes with washing machines and showers and, you know, all of that kind of stuff, we would not be as valuable to the Dummerston tax base as we are currently. Should there be a little tornado, or should there be any, you know, damage to our leach field, I'm not convinced that the homeowners who are there would be able to cough up the money. I know that our family can't. I know that there's another family there on a fixed income. Their children will have to absorb them. So I'm looking not at, oh, it looks like a residential area, so let's zone it residential. I'm looking at like my options for the future. Also, you brought up, you know, oh, well, in these zoning districts you can have this and this, you can have it in both. But that's, I believe, as Sam has said and has been pointed out here, that's not set in blood. Those are in flux right now. Who knows what the newest permutation of those zoning specifications are going to be, and when that's going to be voted on, and how many more meetings I'm going to have to come to find that out, you know, because it changes from time to time to time. And you're asking me to take a blind leap of faith in a lot of arenas, and I'm choking on that, like, big time.
I did want to respond, or continue to clarify, because I was just saying to Deb Titus that there's no regulations, and then Zeke was reading from this list of uses, and that is not in the town plan, what he was reading from.
That's a definition.
Those are some definitions those are some uses listed in different districts, and that's where our draft for the zoning update is at right now, and that, which is why Claudia was saying it's in flux, because it is a draft. So currently, the use is allowed in the residential, which is the light pink up on that map, versus the red or the dark pink of rural commercial, are pretty similar. There's not much that is allowed in rural commercial that isn't allowed in residential, and that was, I think, Zeke's point, followed by Claudia's that, yeah, but it's not set in stone yet.
Since we're on that, could you just read what resource uses are?
If I could butt in, I want to caution everybody here from veering away from the town plan and looking at a draft of zoning. It's my opinion, and I'm going to pull my rank as chair of the planning commission, it's my opinion that we should look at the town plan and see if we like the town plan as looking at what's in that. And we will have this all over again in zoning. But if we think we've got a good plan, then we'll have something to guide our zoning. There are descriptions of for example, the residential district in our town plan, and that is set in stone, or blood, whatever you want it to be, Claudia. But it describes the residential district as something that is meant to allow close density residential development as well as retail and services. So that's why we see a lot of these in our draft, but it says that in the town plan. So, and each of these districts does have a description doesn't have regulations, it has a description, and they're pretty good descriptions. You can get a pretty good sense of what they're meant to be when you read them.
And what does it say about resource in the town plan?
Since we don't have copies around, I don't know if Cheryl want that to be read, or I can do so.
I was told the productive lands list wasn't complete. They had
Well, in zoning, but I,
The town plan.
in the town plan.
Oh, the town plan.
Shall I read it?
Yeah.
Okay, so the resource district, as described, it is on page 14 in the town plan. The resource areas contain lands that currently have or have the potential for productive agriculture or forestry uses. In most locations, undeveloped land, conservation corridors, large parcels, low-impact recreation, and habitat protection are maintained. There are some low to very low-density residential areas located in these resource areas. The purpose of the resource area is to recognize and provide for the continuation of economic values when the land is in productive use. Another purpose is to preserve the rural character of Dummerston, which is characterized by extensive woodlands and undeveloped fields, while accommodating low to very low density residential development that avoids the need for new road infrastructure. So that's the description that we've had since 2010, and that was approved in 2010 by the Select Board.
So Charlie Dunn doesn't fit that description at all. Charlie Dunn does not fit that description at all.
The thought was he's processing firewood.
He's not a forest.
No, he's involved in the processing of the
Which
forest.
is like an industry. I don't mean, and I'm not being argumentative,
Yeah.
but he has logs delivered there.
Yeah. From the
His
forest.
neighbor,
Oh.
yes, from a forest, but
Okay.
not from his
I
forest.
think that's good enough.
Well, it's not his productive land. He's doing an industry
He's
here.
got a small, it's about a 1 acre piece, which even under anything that's proposed for rural, commercial, or commercial wouldn't fit. So he's just in a place that doesn't fit well any place. Nobody wants him to stop doing what he's doing, and so we would sort of just massage it, you know?
Grandfather.
This is forest. These are trees. They came from a forest. He's sawing them up. All right. That's
Okay.
good enough.
So that means we could do like an industry at Sweet Tree Farm, like,
Because if it was like clay and it came from the ground.
right, right,
You're making
right.
it into pots.
Wow. Sure, you could
Right, we'll start making it
Yeah,
pottery.
you could go over, get the clay, bring it over, have a pottery. You could have a bunch of people working there. It'd be great.
That clay is not good for functional wear. It's only good
I can tell you.
Right, we do have
Been there, done that.
we do have a pottery.
Bricks or tennis courts.
Right. Yes.
So to that end, I have a question, because our land is kind of not, we're not selling firewood, but we are a parcel that's too small. We are certainly not
You
productive.
have forest. Or
We have
no
ours.
Well, with your
We have a little bit of forest, we don't have a lot. But-
When we were talking about your piece,
Yes,
as I recall,
yes.
here's this little piece, and what do? We try to find a place. Here you are, bordered on
You want me
three.
to match the land around?
Wait, no, you were bordered on 3 sides by this conserved farmland. We thought, man, that's great. And they can have, we know you're a veterinarian, maybe they can have a kennel. Maybe she wants to have a kennel or animal
That was
hospital. Or
thoughtful of
your
you.
husband wants to have a carpentry shop or something. They can have these businesses there. And we thought we'd blend you in with the rest because it was a 2-acre parcel that didn't fit the regular commercial. So we're trying to find a place where we could fit you, where you could have your aspirations for whatever you want to do there met. So we weren't trying to pull the rug out from under you or do something duplicitous or underhanded. We were trying to think, you know, because we just know you're a veterinarian, we're trying to think, okay, what would she want to do there? And, you know, let's try to make
Right.
this work.
Well, I actually have another piece of land on this corridor that we do use for a veterinary clinic and a kennel, and I appreciate that that stays in rural commercial. And I appreciate what you're saying, and absolutely don't mean at all that none of what, I don't think there's anything tricky going on here. But the question that I have is, so my land and Charlie Dunn's land, to what end does that benefit the town to change our zoning to resource? To what, and where are the people saying, this really benefits us, please change it? Like, that's what I'm asking. Because it's not what I want to do with the land, it's what the people who I want to sell it to want to do with the land.
Right.
That also concerns me.
Yeah.
Right. Like, what if...
So we would, my thought was, here...
What if Charlie Dunn wanted to buy my land?
Someone coming into town, a commercial property is taxed at a lower rate than residential property.
I don't think that's accurate.
Yes, that's accurate.
That's very interesting, because every time I've
Sorry,
asked that...
that's accurate. And so we thought, or I thought, here's your nice place up on the hill. I know you have a horse there. It's surrounded by conserved farmland. Gee whiz, most people, or many people looking for a residential place would think that would be great because they won't have a neighbor building right next to them. And then that it's on Route 5. They're coming up with these uses.
It's really not great farmland. I mean, there's a highway right there, and you can see 91 from my bedroom. So it's...
With 2 acres, but still they can have the horse or a home business or a beauty parlor if they still exist, or something like that. Some business there. You could still have a business there without being a rural commercial. And thought it would just fit better because it was a small piece and the definition of commercial was a bigger piece. So, but we want to work with you. Don't want to.
I appreciate that.
Cindy Wilcox.
I guess I don't want to throw in a lot of planning jargon and stuff, but Brenda alluded to this too, and the benefit to the town goes back to the state, and the state is a top-down administrator of zoning and land use policies, and there are certain goals that all the towns need to adhere to, and they have a process where the town plans are approved or not approved, and they believe in keeping the historically settled areas settled and open spaces in between, and there's a lot of stuff called smart growth right now. And how a town approves its plan that is anywhere close to what their goals are makes a bit of difference on some of the funding that we have available or not available. And it just also helps tie in with the towns around us. I know we've been talking about what are we going to do or what we might do up around the Exit 4 area, and find that we are really not too compatible with Putney. And that could be true most anywhere. But there is a plus to not having long commercial or residential strips, but to break it up and to, I think the way that we're compensating for some of that is to allow much more versatility in the uses. And this is, again, it's just in draft form, but you don't, I think we're going to come up with a plan or zoning where you don't have to be in a red rural commercial zone to conduct commerce. I mean, it can happen in other places. And so that's just one point, and I think Brenda alluded to that earlier on.
can I ask Cindy a question
Sure.
based on that?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, since it's a top-down approach, we're looking at smart growth. We've got to have only so much in an area before we break it up. So what you're saying is, some of these people will have to sacrifice the rural commercial for the benefit of all and for our funding as from the top down? Is that what we're looking at?
I don't see it that way.
Well, the way you stated it was to break it up.
Well, breaking up strips, whatever strips are, whether they're commercial, industrial, residential,
But if
whatever.
we didn't, will we still get the funding from the top down?
I don't know about funding so much as approval.
And what's the approval do for us?
Well, various approvals, that's a hard one to say. It's, yeah, do you want to say something
Well,
about that?
one real important thing it does that we've taken advantage of is if your town plan is not approved by the state planning board, your status in Act 250 hearings changes. And that served us very well, for example, when Velco came through with that power line upgrade and wanted to put a power station right where nobody wanted it. And our town plan, which was approved by the state, specifically prohibited what they were trying to do. And we were able to change that dramatically as a result. Had we had a town plan that was not in conformance, I don't know if we would have got that result. So that's just one example of why having it approved by the state is important.
So you're saying it's mostly procedural than it would be funding?
Yeah, the funding, I think, that Cindy refers to is like these planning grants and things that we get from time to time, which, would it be the end of the world if we didn't get those anymore? You know, probably not.
Okay,
But
so
this,
it wouldn't be the end of the world if somebody didn't have to sacrifice some of the rural commercial, okay, and not break it up as much as for funding. So I'm not saying, what I'm trying to get at is, from what she said, is we're not doing this so we can get more money in. Okay, this is not the reasoning then.
No.
They
No,
can't
the
use this as
reasoning
an
is to
excuse.
try to bring us closer to the state planning goals.
Okay.
Mr. Goodban, I'd like to applaud anyone wanting to be on the select board. But could you restate again the tax base on commercial and residential?
I've been told that the tax rate on commercial is the same as a non-residential, which is lower in Dummerston than the residential rate.
The education
The
tax.
education portion.
The education tax. So when the state sets the education tax, they set a residential rate and a non-residential rate.
The non-commercial rate, or that's non...
No, it's not. It's non-residential and residential.
Yes, and the education report is the major part of the property tax.
That's right.
So I was understand that, thought it was equal. I didn't know there was one kind of...
The municipal tax rate is across the board.
Okay.
Regardless.
Beverly, Kenny, just as a point of clarification with these tax figures, one thing a commercial property cannot do is create a homestead. So you don't get any benefit from a homestead if you own a commercial property. So the taxes tend to be very high for a commercial property, even though the educational rate is lower.
Because you don't get the rebate.
Right.
Ruth Barton?
Mr. Chairman, Ruth Barton. I don't know how long, I have lost track of how long we have been fooling around with this whole changing the town plan thing. But I do know I was much younger then. And I look at the select board, and there might be one member on the select board now that was on there at that time, but I think that's all. And I have asked this question before. What I don't understand is why, way back then, somebody decided we needed to change our town plan. I did not see hordes of people running to the planning commission or the select board or any other official or quasi-official body in this town beating down their doors and saying, oh, please, 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 let's change the town plan. Things are getting boring in this town. We gotta do something to shake them up. Let's change the town plan. Why don't we just go back to the way it was 15 years ago? I'm gonna take a guess that's, you know, everybody was happy, smiling, and greeted each other cheerfully at town meeting instead of all this grumbling in the background.
Very well put.
Thank you very much.
Question?
Yeah, it was a question. Why the heck don't we just scrap this whole thing? I mean, I feel sorry for all the people who have put in the hours and hours and months and years working on it, but why don't we just scrap this whole thing, go back to Plan A, and leave it there? The state might not like it, but I don't really care, because everybody knows that the state stops at White River Junction anyway.
Sounding pretty good, right?
Thank you.
Lee Borowski, you haven't spoken yet.
Hi, Lee Borowski. I own the property that's right in front of Parker Commons, and I think my property is just over the 4-acre minimum, 4.2.
I think it's listed as 3.8.
3.8.
Depends on what map you look at.
Yeah.
It depends on which map you look at.
I think when I bought it, 4.2 was one of the figures. I'm not really.
That's what your tax done.
Yeah, well, that's but anyway, I'm close.
Yeah, you're pretty close.
And so, you know, I guess for me, when I bought the property, the reason why I bought it was because it was zoned rural commercial. And, you know, I guess I don't, I would like to just state that, you know, I'm in agreement with everyone else that I would like to preserve, I bought it as, you know, as a house as well as an investment, and I would like to preserve my investment in my purchase. And you know, I like living here, and of course I think that with my lot, you know, I've had a history of commercial use on that lot. You know, it was at one point a car something or another.
And it also had a wood processing factory that provided Baskerville with some sort of product.
Sounds like a resource.
It wasn't fire, it was like some sort of manufactured product.
Yes, anyway, I guess the point is, you know, the property itself has been in commercial use. I live right next to the campground, which is commercial use. I don't really see a benefit to changing it to residential.
Do you have any plans to start a business there, or?
Well, currently I still have a business there. I mean, I still rent storage out in my barn, so that's still happening.
Yeah, that is okay under residential.
Yes, I understand that.
Future.
But yes, you know, again, I'm concerned about the investment that I made in the property, and you know, the ability to of my ability and to sell it in the future. Should I need to?
Okay. Everyone has had a chance to speak, who's wanted to speak. How? Everyone has spoken once. Who has lost to speak? And let's do some of the people who haven't spoken yet, who would still like to. Excuse me? Yes, yes, I can, actually, I look at this side of the room sometimes also, not just you. Beverly too.
Beverly too. I've heard a lot of landowners really express
that they want their land in rural commercial, that they bought it that way, they bought it that way on purpose, they want it that way. And I haven't really heard solid reasons from the select board as to why those changes are being defended so strongly. And the only thing I've really heard from the select board so far is, well, we thought this would be nice. So why, I don't understand why we're sticking so firmly to not allowing tax-paying landowners to have their land remain in a zone that it was originally in. And I personally would really need to hear a solid reason for that.
Do you want to keep going? Okay.
There's a couple more comments and then we'll wrap it up.
All right.
Thanks. Mark Whitaker. Just one clarification and then one suggestion, recommendation, call it what you will. Just for the record, I have no personal interest in Route 5. I live 2 miles off to the side of it. I am a property rights activist and will stay that way. So anytime rights are taken away, I have issues, no matter where it's located in town. And after hearing the explanation on how it works from Montpelier down on the funding and stuff, my thing is this. This is my read on that. Montpelier's the mouse. And if you feed the mouse the right amount of cheese, they'll buy your plan. So what I don't understand is, because in my opinion, what you've done to the Route 5 corridor, against many landowners' wishes, is offer the whole block of cheese right up front. If you take what the committee, the Route 5 and Route 30 committee recommended for mapping, who was very much in touch with all the landowners in the corridor, more than any other committee in this town, and offer that. Why can't we put that map in the book? Because all I've heard about that map from the committee is from a handful of people that consistently want to overregulate things. And it's a handful of people. That's why it's called a minority, which doesn't have room in democracy. In democracy, minorities lose. Majorities win. So I recommend that you take the corridor committee map, try to adopt that, run that through a public hearing and see what you get. Put that in the town plan and see if Montpelier bites that. If not, come on back. I mean, it's been going on for 15 years, so another 10 don't matter. If they don't bite that piece, bring it back. We'll take another chunk out and throw it back. I think you're giving up too much without reason. And like I said, throw them a smaller piece of cheese. They may bite it. Think about that. Thanks.
I just want to make a point of clarification that I did make the point about residential encroaching upon commercial, and there seems to be a point to saying that, well, we're going to give a lot to residential. But what I've seen as history in Dummerston is that the more residential that surrounds commercial, the worse it gets. And you might get a feathering of small businesses and opportunities for people, but I don't think you're going to get the growth that's going to actually get employment through this town if you start surrounding the commercial with a lot of residential, the way that it seems as if you are, and the opportunity for future. You know, a lot of things are being looked at the future. We need to keep those small parcels so that the future of commercial in Dummerston is potentially there. And it is a really small portion of the acreage. Thank you.
Oh, now my mind's like blank. I've forgotten what I had to say.
Yeah, I just wanted to say in response to the select board changing thing. Rightly, wrongly, I put tremendous trust in the work of the planning commission. And they've been working on this for years, literally, and came to us with recommendations. And I think we tinkered ever so sensitively with a few things. I wouldn't consider myself naive in trusting the planning commission, but I looked at them as being very, very close to the situation for a long time. And for them to come with a recommendation like this, that had to be grounded in something. So there must be other people that attended those meetings and must have had influence as well. I'm not sure if only people with a problem have come here tonight, and others who feel that maybe this is the way they would like to see the town go have not shown up tonight. It seems like that's a possibility anyway. But I've always been that way. If we have a DRB or a planning commission, I see them as much closer to and making recommendations to the select board. Rather than, this is not necessarily a plan that's being shoved down people's throats by the select board. It may ultimately be seen that way, and I think a lot of people here see it that way, from what I've heard tonight. But I don't see it that way. Does that make sense? Some sense? Yeah.
I think
No, go ahead. Take over for
I think what we're responding to is not the planning commission's work, but the changes that were made by the select board to the planning commission's work.
Actually,
Would you go so far as to say that you are supportive of what the planning commission sent to the select
I'm
board?
sorry, the corridor study.
The
Sam's
corridor.
group. Sam's group.
That's the
That's the
plan.
planning commission. Yeah.
The planning commission.
Although
So it's
Sam-
only our tinkering, really, that the body assembled is contentious about?
The only thing that changed, the thing that changed on your property was the clay pen. Would be the only thing that changed on your property would have been the clay pen.
and the sugar house.
No,
That, the planning commission did that.
the planning commission had already taken that out. So it's the clay pen is the only thing on your property
Okay.
that has changed.
All right, well then, that sugar house changed since the meeting we went to, we must have missed a meeting. Okay. Then I don't support the planning. I did, and now I don't.
Okay. Yeah. I would like to say that the corridor committee put a lot of time in. And I really don't understand why it was passed on to the planning commission. And the planning commission really didn't come up with what the planning commission wanted, because it was very divisive, argumentative subject. And I have to say that the people who want it changed don't live in the corridor, and they aren't paying taxes on that property. And I think that that's a really important thing to consider. And I'd also like to back up what Mark says, that those people are people who really want to overregulate.
sort of water over the dam, but and I don't want to go way into the history, but the planning commission got the corridor study because there were two plans that came out of the corridor committee study. The select board tossed it back to the planning commission to see if they could come up with something out of those two plans.
There was a minority report.
Yes, there were two plans that we accepted from the corridor committee. We accepted both of them and passed them off to the planning commission to see what they could do with it.
Bev, you see, this is an issue that goes on everywhere. You're saying now it's a minority report between them, but you're on the planning commission, and when it wasn't the way you liked it, it was, it was too, it wasn't the way it was because it was too argumentative, is I think the word you used. And that's the same thing that was going on with the corridor committee. I believe is the same thing that was going on with the planning commission. You had two groups that were pretty equally, they had odd numbers. One had 4 and the other one had 3. And the same way with the planning commission. Now with the planning commission, you were saying it wasn't what they all agreed on, but maybe it was the majority that agreed on it, and that's why it passed. You have an issue with that because the majority passed that. But now with the other way, the majority got it with the corridor, and there's not a problem. It should have been just the corridor. See, that's where I have issues with things, is when people use things to the way they want to use them.
No, I'm not using things to the way I want it. I was, yes, I am on the planning commission, and a lot of what's there I did agree with. There's a lot there is stuff there that I don't agree with. But what I'm saying is the corridor committee did their work, and it was undermined. It was not taken as valid. And that's why the minority report was accepted.
Why is there not a minority planning commission report?
I don't know if they sent one in or not.
Well,
I guess they haven't.
silly. Why would they? It's a democracy.
I think we're really getting off point here, and I wish you'd have corrected it sooner, because this isn't, we ought to be discussing this, because this is a plan we're forced with. Many of you probably know I don't agree with the changes that were made in this, some of them from the Planning Commission presentation. I would hope, and I know in the select board, I think I can say this, that we will take what's said here tonight, and I would think we would be able to work with this a little bit. I struggle with the fact that these people that keep coming have been coming for years, and I would hope we would start listening.
I disagree with you.
Excuse me, I still have the floor, Louis. Could I just finish my statement?
Sure.
I think it just would take a little bit of work on what we got here, and we could satisfy the concerns of many of the people here. Possibly not all, but many of them. And I would hope that we are going to listen, because we still are going to go back and review this after our hearing tonight. And really, I think the hearing tonight was for them to speak and not us.
Right.
So I'm sorry that we've been responding to everything, because it really is for them, us to hear them, not them to hear us.
Thank you, Steve.
Thanks.
Now, the thing, Steve, if you're done, I think we heard everybody here, and I've been listening to everybody the whole night. And that's why the only time I spoke was when I had something to say about one of the issues that was brought up 2 different ways. I've listened to everybody here. I've listened to everybody every time you've come to any select board meetings or any meeting. I listen to you. Do I always do what you say? No. Does that mean I haven't listened to you? Absolutely not. I've listened to everybody, and I will listen to everybody. When you come to me, you call me at home, whatever. I will listen to you. I don't always agree with you. And I'm not saying I agree or disagree with anything anybody has said right now. But I've listened to what everybody has said.
We did also get some letters that were as disappointed with this plan as some of you have been, but for different reasons. We hadn't gone far enough. We were not supporting agriculture enough. We were, for completely, just a mirror image.
Those were people who live on Route 5, though, most likely?
Let me see. The people that are picking up, no, they don't live on Route 5. But then Mark Whitaker doesn't live on Route 5, and we are listening to him and taking into consideration what he says. So we're at the Select Board of Dummerston, so we have to listen to everyone.
Not necessarily have to, but should.
Yeah, I think we
Hopefully we do.
You should go and turn it.
Claudia Teachman, once again, I believe it is valid to listen to Mark Whitaker just as valid as it is to listen to Bev Tier as it is to the people on the planning commission, because Mark Whitaker was on the corridor committee, and that was, he put in time, effort, etc. on that. So I think his comments here are very valid, because he is also representing as a spokesperson for the many individuals whose testimony he heard and who he personally interviewed. So that I think is valid. The other point that I want to make, and then I'm like totally done, is I once again want to reiterate, the zoning bylaws are not rewritten. So you keep on saying, oh, but you can have this, and you can have this, and you can have this. But that could change. And you cannot guarantee me that if you change my land out of residential, rural commercial, as it stands today, into residential, that what you have on that list there is what I will get. You cannot promise me that. And that's a significant issue for me and probably for many people here. I know that Nelson Gilson, who I'm not sure is present tonight,
He's sick.
has said at one point when the plan, in front of the Planning Commission, when they were saying, well, we want to put your land in resource, and he strongly opposed that and asked that it not to be done. His primary reason was the definition, specifications, setbacks, etc. is not complete, it's not finished for resource. He said, who knows, when it's all done and said, I might be happy with resource, but it's not done. And that is the strongest argument that I have to ask you to please do not change the designation of my land or the other people, the other taxpayers here, because we don't, you can't promise me what's going to happen.
All right, I'm going to close.
I just have some. I kind of raised much the same question in a select board meeting. I'm new to all of this. But I guess my question was, why can't we why can't we work out the zoning bylaw and define what's permitted in all of these districts before we amend the town
What a
plan?
novel idea.
Good idea, Joe.
But I was told there's a reason. Lewis spoke to it.
Was it a good reason?
The Planning Commission is working on a zoning update now. We've been working on it
Couple of years now.
more than a couple. We've been working on it all along. So we will eventually finish that. We're working on those new districts because they're in the town plan. If those districts weren't in the town plan, then we wouldn't be working on them. So the town plan does have to come first in some way. I mean, we didn't have those districts in our draft before 2010. That's when the districts got into the town plan. This update to the Route 5 corridor isn't going to change our work on the districts. It's just going to change the look of small areas of the map. So I guess, to answer your question, you don't have to do anything in particular for this town plan update if you want to wait for more zoning first.
Yes.
However, this came along first basically because it was it followed immediately from the approval of the 2010 town plan, and the corridor committee did its work and it came to the town. So it was on our plate. And since we hadn't finished the zoning update, we felt it would be better for our zoning update to get this work done first. If we could straighten it out in the town plan, what's happening on the corridor, then we can proceed from there to the zoning districts in the corridor.
Well, what I take away from this meeting is folks want to know what they're getting into.
Right.
Nobody wants to buy a pig in a poke.
This work should have been, this is a direct fallout from accepting the town plan in 2010. The select board accepted the town plan with the premise that there would be a corridor study to review the land use districts in the corridor. And if we can complete that work to most people's satisfaction, it probably would help assist the Planning Commission in maybe how they write zoning in some of these areas, depending on where rural commercial is or where resource is. So this is sort of fallout from the 2010 acceptance. And then the Planning Commission was directed by the Select Board to get this completed about 2 years ago. So there is a force behind this being done, and it's a direct fallout from accepting the 2010 plan with the idea that this would be studied in recent years.
Is it possible just to comment on what Steve's talking about? There is another force in that by statute all town plans have to be updated every 5 years. Well, this is 2014, has to be done in 2015, and this might be the update if we can do it.
It is the update.
It is the update because, and I think the Planning Commission is pretty much overwhelmed with the zoning chores. To take up a new town plan would be probably impossible. We could readopt the old one,
Yes.
but that would have the same proviso.
I would urge the select board to really try to wrap this up rather than prolong it. In spite of this concern of, what will it mean to get into residential, you can talk to the Planning Commission where we are with the draft. There's not that much radical stuff going on. I mean, as far as changes to the uses in these districts, it's not as if, gosh, I didn't know you could have a helicopter landing pad in rural residential. Nobody told me that was going to happen. There's nothing weird like that happening. But the need to resolve this corridor issue is great, and it's been a long time, and it's been through the ringer. And there have been a lot of impassioned arguments tonight, but I have to say that they are ones I've heard before. So those arguments have been made before, and it's not as if there's some completely new slant on this this mapping issue. Those are completely valid arguments, but to make it hold up the process at this point, I think would be really hard on the town. I think it's something that's just got to be wrapped up. And certainly as Planning Commissioner, I don't want to see you again. So, if it needs to be more conservative in order to finish it, so be it. But I think at this point, that certainly was the reason we sent it on, was that we felt it was a very hard issue. It was very divisive in the town, divisive in the Planning Commission. We managed to get to a point where we could actually agree to send it on. And as one commissioner said very aptly, let's stop now because every time we change it, we make it worse. So I think it's time to not kick it any further down the road. It's going to come up again. There's going to be another update. So let's finish this one and continue the work. But this corridor issue has been hanging over Dummerston since 2010.
I would like to close this.
One more comment. Just a point of interest, if anyone can't stay at the select board or whatever, it'll be on VCTV, channel 10 at 10:30 Saturday and 6 o'clock Sunday. If anybody wants to see it. Meeting.
And you can live stream it at any point, on demand.
But this particular meeting will be Saturday or Sunday.
VCTV and you
So,
have to
closing this public hearing, and we will proceed with our regular select board. Do you want to take a break?
No, just for those of you who might be leaving now, thank you for coming.
Thank you.
If you don't come, democracy doesn't work, and you're not heard unless you come. And you have been heard. Thank you.
I didn't see it.
Yeah.
You going to the tree?
Yeah, I'm going all the way. Yeah. I don't know why I
Thank you for doing your job. I'm not going to stick around.
Lori, do you know if Alex Wilson came by with the petitions today?
Katie Bird brought one petition in with 12 signatures.
Oh, because I have some other random ones here, and I thought Alex was going to be here tonight, but I don't see him, so maybe he'll come yet. But,
Tomorrow by 5.
oh, tomorrow, okay.
Stick around.
What's that? I said that 2 years ago. If you want to do that, you go and take out a petition, get a signature, put it on a ballot. You want democracy, just like every other property. I would sign the petition just to get it on the ballot. I have a hard time saying that. I do think, tax incentives can be used. You get them, there are various tax incentives all along the Right Try not to put my foot in it.
Excuse me, sir, you just get out of here. Talking to
Sugar, I don't know if
They got right under your collar. Folks, we gotta have a select board meeting yet. I hate to force you out into the cold, but we gotta get some other work done. Thank you.
Was that a
I hate to force you out in the cold, but.
Minutes of the previous meeting, January 8th, and
I'll make your motion that we approve the minutes of January 8th and 9th.
Second. Oh, okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Bills for payment, we have warrant 15 and 15P.
I move approval of warrants 15 and 15P.
Second. Okay, discussion. There was what was it? Cassandra the cat?
Yeah.
$60?
Yeah, I saw that. I figured you were aware of what that was.
No, that was new to me, but maybe we should turn the cameras off. But I know we budget $500 for the Wyndham Humane Society, and then we dip out of that fund to pay for the Cassandras that come along and the Fidos, and then we give them whatever's left at the end of the year. I'm just wondering if the contract we signed, they're thinking they're going to get $500 and the $60 for this and that. So I think that might be something we have to think about next year, but I hope we can coast through this one.
Should we follow up with them though, right off, and make sure there's not a misunderstanding?
We can do it without.
You think the health? Yeah.
The dog and cat officer would take care of that. I think we're okay with it right now. Okay, so a motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Opposed? There we go. Recognition of visitors and public comments. Do we have, yes, Ruth, Barton?
This is my annual question. Does the select board wish the Grange to provide a meal at town meeting?
Gentlemen, what's your pleasure?
It's worked good for a lot of years, hasn't it?
Yep. If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
That goes for the town plan too.
Amen. I'll move that we contract with the Grange for the meal at the town meeting.
Same price as last year?
I don't set the price, but I assume so.
I assume so too, so. All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
You don't want a second?
Yeah.
A second?
I was just about to second that.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll second that motion.
You
Gotta be quicker than that.
Go ahead.
Well, everyone still in favor?
Yes.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Correspondence for information. Is there anything?
I have one more quick question. Can anyone tell me if our little dispute with if the town's little dispute with the Learning Collaborative has been?
It hasn't been resolved yet.
It hasn't been resolved yet.
No. And we're just waiting.
We're waiting for Tom to come back and it's resolved that.
We could hear any day, but
Okay.
haven't heard anything.
It's beyond our control at this point.
A lot of cannon fodder for Tom's comic relief here if we're not careful. Things that haven't gone away.
Any other public comments? All right. Anything under correspondence for information that you feel we need to deal with? We need to decide about that firehouse light sometime by June, but I wouldn't think we have to do that tonight. Under correspondence for discussion and/or action, we have an email from Tom Bodette regarding petition about the solar array taxation.
We're going to go over that tonight? I thought we were going to have a short meeting after that. You should talk about that? Okay.
I tried to put it all in a letter so it wouldn't keep you up late.
Which one?
How many did I send?
Two beauties.
Okay, so you saw the letter. there's a tax, well, do you want to explain, talk about this?
Yeah, there's, the state had up until, the state had up until last year exempted all solar installations from state and local property taxes. They changed that legislation last year. It now only exempts systems up to 10 kilowatts, which is about a small home system. And they passed it back to the towns to decide. What this came from was the legislature getting an earful from towns that they don't like the state making so many decisions for them. And so the state said, this is something we can pass back to the towns, but we'll make it easy for you to continue this exemption. We'll tax all these arrays with this education property tax. It's a $4 a kilowatt hour a year tax, goes directly to the education fund. That way, if towns do exempt these systems, they are not liable for the education property tax as they are with some other local exemptions that are made. So the state said, it's up to you, we made it easy, have at it. So, so now these petitions or, so now towns have to vote on whether to exempt them or not. If they don't vote to exempt them, they're automatically taxed. And I feel personally, because I'm a big proponent of green energy, I do own a solar array, which I'm not here for saving myself any money. I think you know how much taxes I pay, and I've never once grieved or otherwise complained about it, so I'm certainly not going to all this effort for the $176 that it's going to cost me. The others involved with circulating this petition, Alex Wilson, you all know, he was one of the founding chairs of our Energy Committee and one of the real voice across the nation in green energy development and conservation, and Jack Mannix, just all the solar arrays around town that are above this 10 kilowatt hour threshold. Now, our concern isn't for our pocketbooks. Obviously, this is not a big tax. And chances are that those of us who have power purchase agreements, which most of us do, won't pay it anyway. But that's something I learned today. I said in my letter, because my array and many are owned by a corporation and not the landowner, that they can't be taxed. It'd be like taxing your Merrill gas tank out back of your garage that you don't own, but it's sitting on your property, or the phone pole's down on your road. But what I learned today is that that's probably not true. So if I am liable for this tax, I would not be exempt, even if the town exempted all solar arrays, because I do have a PPA. And what the state's wisdom was on that is they wanted to make homeowners able to have these systems as easily as possible, and to encourage that. They didn't want the large commercial enterprises to have that tax exemption, because the reason we formed these corporations in the first place was to take advantage of the deep federal and state rebates and tax things. And what the state figures is that's incentive enough. If you guys need any more than that, there's something wrong with it. And I agree with that. I agree with that. I'm happy to pay the local tax if that's the way the law reads. So to that end, I would be willing to amend what I would recommend that the select board, and I do recommend the select board place an article on the town meeting, to exempt solar arrays up to, like right now it's over 10 kilowatt, and I would say up to 25 or even 30 kilowatts. My system's 37. I think there's one other in town that's larger than mine, which would, again, it doesn't matter, I'm going to pay this tax anyways, it turns out. So I just want to make absolutely sure people don't think I'm in here trying to line my pocket. I'm doing this because the other points that I made in my letter is there's two very important things that are happening in the state. One is that this comprehensive energy plan that the governor adopted and the legislature approved in 2011 calls for 90%, that 90% of Vermont's energy comes from renewables by 2050. And this is being written into law. And this statewide energy siting policy commission I served on last year, where we worked with the Public Service Board, Agency of Natural Resources, Department of Public Service, all the agencies involved with this, including the power companies, Velco, and all of the regional authorities. They understand that in order to enact this plan, everybody's going to have to do their part. So the laws are going to start changing here, where if you want to have a party in an Act 248 hearing, which would be, say, if somebody wants to put a windmill up on Windmill Hill, I guess that's not Dummerston, or up on Prospect Hill. If you want to be a party to that, you will have to be able to demonstrate. You can't just say no to things you don't want. You just can't say no to wind. You have to say, well, okay, but what else are you doing to enact the goals of the Comprehensive Energy Plan? And that's where a town can say, well, we zone this 10 acres over here for renewable energy. We've enacted the PACE program, which allows people to, do energy free. We've done this, this, and that. Okay, fine, you're in. You have party status at this hearing. So you don't want to go in there and say, well, we tax our solar arrays. What you'd like to be able to do is go in and say, we exempted our solar development in Dummerston because we believe in renewable energy, and we want to make it possible. Now, as I explained in the letter, now this is like a nominal tax, like Alex Wilson is the example I use, is $82 a year or something like that. But these systems last for 25 years, maybe longer. So that ends up being like $2,000 added on to the cost of this system. So if you're trying to make a decision of where, when, or if to build a system, if that's about the size that you're in, or the bigger you get, the worse the number gets, it does change the math. Like I say, the margins of efficiency on these solar arrays are reliable, but they're very long-term, and they're very narrow. So you start throwing little things like that in there, and it does affect the feasibility, and it will affect if people build, people who are really twisting the numbers, and it will affect what they build. If we don't exempt systems larger than 10 kilowatts, people are going to build 9.5 kilowatt things. This happens all over the state. They come up with these, I don't want to say artificial, but these arbitrary thresholds. Wind is a good example. Like 10 years ago, they set the threshold of 2.1 megawatts as the threshold when you had to have a public service board hearing to put up a wind tower. And the reason they picked 2.1 is because that was the largest turbine that was manufactured at that time. Now there's ones that are much larger than that, but the 2.1 remains because it made sense at the time. I would say that this 10 kilowatts is just as arbitrary because, like, my system is 37 kilowatts, but I'm not a utility. I use all of that electricity to power the heat pumps that are in my basement. They're taking thermal energy from the ground, and that uses a lot of electricity. So you might say 37 kilowatts, that's an awfully big system for a home. Well, that's because I'm heating with it too. And so to put an arbitrary cap of 10 kilowatts takes a lot of sort of green energy options off the table, or at least penalizes them. That's going to affect people's planning and thinking. The other unfairness is like somebody like Alex, who needed a 12.2 kilowatt system for his needs that he had engineered, will have to pay the tax on the whole 12.2 kilowatts because he's 2 kilowatts over. So the next person comes along and his engineer says, yeah, you need a 12 kilowatt system, but actually it'd be cheaper if you go with 9.9 because by the time you work in this $2,000 over the course of the thing, you'll never get it back. And so it's going to start affecting on the ground energy decisions for what I think is very little money for the town. It's not going to generate much money, and by not exempting them, I think it could put us in bad stead with future public service board hearings that we may want to appear in front of. So those are the practical reasons I see for, well, if I was sitting on that board, I would be, voting for placing the article as the select board on there and explain this very thing. The other stuff, the fact that it's in our town plan, you know, everybody loves to quote our town plan whenever it serves their purposes, and so I'm not going to do that, but it is. And it's the right thing to do. You know, it's the right thing to do. Dummerston is one of the leaders in the state. I served for 6 months with this commission. Everybody had heard of the Dummerston Energy Committee. They've won awards, they've done some amazing projects, Alex and others have done these studies. They are a sterling energy committee and they're recognized around the state. Dummerston is recognized as one of the leaders in this area. And for this town not to be a leader in the exempting of solar installations, I think really diminishes that unnecessarily. So that's my piece.
How are you doing on the petition?
Well, I've got about 15 signatures here. I think it's about 6 different people have these. I have no idea.
And the deadline is tomorrow at 5.
At 5, yeah.
I guess my point, and I've read a couple of these green energy magazines, is there's a substantial appraisal value of somebody's property with these panels on there. So you're asking the town not to tax them, but the property owner is going to realize a higher resale value on his house when he sells it, if he sells it. So he's essentially getting 2 breaks. First off, you know, we're not going to charge him the tax, and secondly, he's going to be able to get more for his house. I just, when you say that their return is more marginal because of paying the taxes, well, that's only half the picture, because actually their place is worth more money with the panels on there, from what I'm reading in these green magazines anyway.
Yeah, well, when you sell it, you'll get
but that only if you sell. Mm-hmm. But it just seems like a double whammy to the town, because you're not going to tax them, and then their property's worth more because of it. So I'm not sure I'm totally sold yet.
And a double bonus to the homeowner, who might be more thoroughly convinced to install solar. Because, hey, maybe it will improve your property value.
Well, I mean, if I could just speak to that, so, you know, certainly it will. If you invest $100,000 in your property on anything, you know, you're going to get that back. So that's not like free money, it's just getting your money back.
Right, yeah.
So that's not really a bonus to the landowner, it's just getting your money back.
Well, the articles are saying that they're actually, you do generate more return than the cost of the investment. I'm only quoting an article that I read in that.
Yeah, and that would diminish over time because they lose efficiency, and if you sell it in 10 years or 20 years, it would be worth a lot less money than it would if you sold it the next year.
They might even need replacing.
I was going to say, they depreciate, even the town depreciates them every year, correct? Yeah, the town depreciates the value of the solar system each year. They put it in a formula, and it depreciates that solar system each year.
It's based on how many kilowatts they produce, right? Is that what I understood?
And the age. Because at 25 years, they really start diminishing. And actually, I heard 20 years, but 25 years is what you said, Tom, and so we'll go with that. They really start diminishing the amount of power. My question for you is, you said if you purchase this as an LLC or a corporation, you'll have to pay tax on that anyways.
Right. I got a copy of the statute today that explained that in more detail. I missed that on the first version I had did not include that exemption from the exemption. So it made it clear that you know, I wouldn't have qualified anyway.
Right.
I'm still not certain about the fact that I don't own these things. You know, what is the mechanism for me getting a tax bill for this? Honestly, I'm not going to make a big deal out of that. That's not probably a fight worth fighting. What I think is a fight worth fighting is, let's not do anything in Dummerston that will restrict or adversely affect the development of green energy in town. And I think this would. And if it's simply expressed as an article that raises that threshold to 30, which would cover, 99% of what anybody in this town is going to do, I would be very satisfied with that, and would take no personal, obviously, benefit from that. I don't know if the other large array that belongs to the Waxmans, if they have that in a PPA or not. So, if they don't, then they aren't going to get a break anyway. So.
Yes.
Tom, I think I heard you say we're really only talking about the municipal portion of the taxes.
It is, yes.
Which is, relatively small amount in relationship to the whole. My sense is I'm encouraged by, and I agree with you that we have a very strong energy committee, and I think we should all be very proud of the work that they do. I would encourage them to get these petitions signed and brought in tomorrow, such that it does go on an article. I don't know that you need the support of the select board, but I would prefer that it comes from the grassroots effort, and then you could address the matter at town meeting.
Yeah, well, we got a little late start on that as it turned out. Nobody was really watching that. Well, I just got informed that this was even happening on Friday. So.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but then you run the chance of it getting voted down at town meeting too. I would be interested in the proposal of maybe lowering the base, raising the base.
You're going to make it a separate article at town meeting.
Yeah, it'd be an article either way.
Right.
So it could get voted. It would get voted. It could get voted down even if the select board puts it on as an article.
If Tom spoke so eloquently in favor of a 30 kilowatt level, we might be in good shape.
So I have a question. So what actually is the effect on taxes in Dummerston in terms of people when it comes in? Is there a list of how many solar?
It's about $1,000, I think.
Is that it total?
1,048, Maria, is that what I had?
And that's for what currently exists. And as I said in the letter, I'm not, the people who currently have these things, it's not going to make or break any of us whether we have to pay it or not. It's not going to make the difference. We've made our commitment. We're all kind of early adopters. We did it because we believe in the technology. We would have done it anyway. It's the people who haven't built yet and who might not. That's the people that I'm thinking about here.
Tom, one thing, when you write a letter, sometimes you should read it over. Just the reason I'm saying that is because some of your arguments for not jumping on board to this said to me, wow, maybe I won't, agree with them on this. Because to me, I think they're ugly. I think the solar arrays I think they're an eyesore. And we have a lot of people talking about scenic corridors going up and down, through this town. And to me, I personally think they're ugly. Do I have a problem with them? No. I don't care if people have them on their property. I think it's great that they do. But to me, they are ugly. And one of your comments was, if you do this, what do you want? People to go to another towns with them? So I was like, oh,
Right. Yeah, I did see that, and that is an issue all over the state. They call it green sprawl. There's a name for it, from wind towers to solar arrays. And that's certainly something that the town could consider, as long as we're doing zoning and planning, is zoning areas that are preferred for solar, and maybe they're tax-free there or whatever, encourage them to be built in certain places. A lot of towns are doing things like that, and the state is making maps for wind, preferred installations for wind, just for that very reason. It's an excellent point.
You have a question,
So do I understand it right that if you go with exempting these solar arrays, the tax base?
Wait, I would back up. He's only trying to get an article on the town meeting. So we wouldn't be exempting anybody. He's just coming here, seeing if we'll go ahead and put a warrant on the town meeting. And meanwhile, other people are collecting signatures to get a warning on the town meeting, but we're not empowered to exempt.
No. Did I say exempt?
Yes.
Sorry about that. Getting tired. If the solar arrays are granted tax exemption, because that's what we're talking about, right?
Mhm.
The municipal taxes on that will be paid out of our grand list or whatever, be rolled into our tax rate kind of thing.
Well, just
the municipal
that
part.
tax would never be there. It's never been there before. They've always been exempt. This is the first opportunity the town has ever had to tax them. This is, what this would be is a continuation of the exemption that solar arrays have always enjoyed.
That they've been doing since they started.
Yeah.
Okay. Gotcha.
I equate it a little bit with gas tax, the fact that we've been encouraged to conserve and to drive less and smaller cars, and so we've done that overwhelmingly, and the gas tax has suffered. So what's the answer? Just raise the gas tax and penalize the people for the behavior that we've all been encouraged to do. And this seems like the same kind of grab to me. Yeah.
Okay, so you would like to see if we'll just put a warrant on the town meeting?
That's my
course. Okay, gentlemen, what would you like to do?
I have no problem with it, although you probably want to word it rather than leave it to me or somebody here. I don't know.
So there is wording on the petition, but
Yeah.
it does not include this cap that I mentioned.
Is the cap necessary? Arbitrary?
Yes.
So, the only reason we'd be asked to do this is because there's concern that they might not get the petition in tomorrow.
Because they were so late to the party.
How many, I'm sorry,
Oh,
how many signatures do we need on petitions? About
85.
And aren't they, I had heard they were very close to that. Has anybody heard?
We've only had one petition turned in so far, and there were 12 signatures on it.
Yeah, I've got about another 12 here, and there's like 4 other people who are circulating. Honestly, I don't know how close we are. I really don't know.
Well,
You guys would sign would help.
So, and the other, obviously, when the select board places an article and speaks for it at town meeting, it has a lot more, it doesn't necessarily guarantee a passage. In fact, sometimes it
might get everyone out of town after tonight.
I think if the select board does, I mean, I know Bill was close to making a motion there, but he didn't. So I think if there was a motion made, I would think that it would come from the floor. The support would come from the floor. If the select board chooses to put it in as an article, just like with Green Mountain Camp, we have somebody get up to speak for that. I would say that it would be, come from the floor.
Well, and I'm sure that, I know myself, and I'm sure Alex Wilson would be happy to speak for it. In fact, probably between the two of us, we'll have people screaming for mercy, and they'll call the question and vote just to get the hell out of there.
Paper ballot.
I would like to see this a grassroots thing. I would like to see the petition succeed. I would even feel better about the petition but we aren't going to have time to change the wording to the 30 kilowatt. I agree with a lot of what Tom says, but I still would like this to come from the community, particularly because so few people get to go to town meeting.
Well, either way, it will get to the community for a vote.
To those that attend the meeting, yeah.
Yeah, well, that's the way it always is, isn't it?
Tom, yeah, let's circulate that tonight. I'll sign it.
Okay.
Okay. So.
I got another question right there.
What happened is, I actually got a call on this, like, when was that? I just got that. Monday. So I called these guys, so this is, and then Alex wrote this up when? Friday.
Well, yeah, I wrote the draft and Alex got
So
on
it's
the,
only been circulating since, like, the weekend? And I don't even know who's circulating them. One's turned in. I did that one.
yeah, Alex was gonna gather them up today, so again, we just don't know if
So,
we're gonna have
we
enough.
might,
but-
I don't, I'm guessing we're not gonna have 85 signatures.
Well, I think you should. I don't want to tell you what to do. But if it, so I just won't tell you what to do. I think I've talked enough for one night.
I just like to point out as a lister that, that when we took the tax away, the state told us to do this. It wasn't our choice, it wasn't something we invented. But it was very, very, very last minute. And when we found out that none of the other towns had done it, we weren't sure that we had had the time or the guidance or anything to do it correctly, we took it away. And I'm glad we did, because the tax bills that this computer program generated were incorrect, which created, I think, more stress on everybody to begin with. But I didn't even realize that until we started this whole process of coming back, trying to do it early to see, you know, to make sure that we did do it right this year, that we did understand it all, and that we knew exactly what we were doing. But when we took the tax away last year and reissued the tax bills without the solar panels on them, we had a discussion, and I don't know if it was with Tom or with who, but we clearly said this wasn't the lister's job to go to the town to get this on the warning. It wasn't our job to do that. It was your job to do this. And we called them this week as a courtesy to say, hey, if you're going to do this, this is the due date. I mean, so yes, you had a very short warning, but you've known that this was something that you all were responsible for the past year, or at least since June or July, somewhere in there.
Yeah, no, thank you, you're right. There's confusion like this going on all over the state, because the first blast that came out last year was extremely confusing and wrong, some of it. And like I called Putney today to see what's going on. It's just the opposite. Their listers, the town manager and the select board had wanted to place this article, and the listers said, you're overstepping your bounds, and reined him in. So it's just the opposite point. But you thought it's not the lister's job to do this. The listers are saying it's not your job to do this up there. So I mean,
I don't think it's the lister's job to advocate for a very small.
No, you're absolutely right. I agree. I agree. Yeah, thank you for that courtesy call, by the way. We wouldn't be this close if we.
Yeah, well, we didn't try and get this close, but.
We don't have a motion on the floor. And I guess I'm finding myself agreeing with some of the things Charlotte and Steve said, and my clear preference would be that this be a grassroots initiative that is brought by petition. Quite honestly, if this came to a town vote, I'm not positive which way I would vote. I mean, I'd like to think of myself as green. Tom, with all due respect, the economics of these facilities, you know, long term, you know, I think is not going to hinge upon, you know, any vote at town meeting. Will it really just, you know, make a difference? I think that people people like yourself and Alice who have committed, you know, do so because you believe in it, you know, whatever, $80 or whatever, you know, 1 year is not going to, in my estimation, make the difference. And
Can I speak?
Sure.
You know, you're right. It probably won't for most. It's more of a gesture. It's more of an affirmation from the town. That's why I would prefer it came from the select board, because you are the town voice, the spokesman for the town. And we do believe in green energy. We believe in our town plan. We believe in promoting the comprehensive energy plan, which is the law of the state. And you're going to be happy you did that the next time you find yourself trying to get party status when they're trying to build a wind tower in Prospect Hill. So that's my point. That's why I think it would be good governance to do this, because the stakes for doing it are very small. The stakes for not doing it could be very large. And that by itself, I think, makes it good government for the select board to support this.
I'm very comfortable having the people at town meeting decide this and getting it onto the warrant. I guess I prefer to have the petitions come in. We have a window of opportunity if they fail.
No, by state statute, it's due by 5 o'clock on the 23rd.
Man.
But if each energy member called 5 people
Yeah.
and arranged to get it, you got it done. It's not going to take that much.
So what do you want to do, guys?
Sounds like you have a simple majority here.
I'm still on the fence, you know?
I would have to disclose too that I actually install a lot of these or do the excavation, so I may have to recuse myself anyway. I've installed other than Tom's and you folks. I've installed a lot of them in Dummerston, so.
You know, the Scott Farm has a system.
That's why I think I'd like to see this come somewhere else.
But I'm paid by the Scott Farm orchard, so I'm not getting any kilowatts from this.
That's a hot water thing though, isn't it, Steve?
There's a hot water, and I don't get any hot water. I'm in the hot
we
water.
we installed a photovoltaic
but there's a photo.
last year.
But neither of you stands to directly benefit or not from this tax exemption. So
I just in fair disclosure,
Right.
No.
Tom Gale just made a good point, and that is that only 5 members of the committee would need to, or each committee member only would have to get, say, 5 signatures. These are the folks that you're going to need to depend on anyway to sell this project.
Well, they're all out there. They have the petition. Again, we may have the signatures. I don't know. I won't repeat myself, but I just think the select board doing it would look great for Dummerston, and I think you'll be happy you did it. And I think if you don't, I think you probably will next year. I really do. I think there will be enough changes in the landscape that you'll see why it'd be a good idea. I'd be a leader in this if I were in your chairs.
There's still time to get a petition.
I'm seemingly the only one that agrees.
I don't know. I don't know. If you made a motion, you might get a second. You never know that.
Yeah, I'm not sure I can articulate the motion properly, but if I do, I guess it'll bring it to a vote and we can make the decision that way.
Well, that's what I was trying to say to you.
So,
you need to get a second, though.
I haven't even made the motion.
I know.
I want somebody who's closer to the situation to maybe give us the terminology for the motion. Can you do that? And I would say so moved. Mr.
Are you looking for language?
Language.
The language that I would recommend is for the article would be to see if the town should exempt from property tax assessment solar electric systems, including panels, inverters, battery systems, and balance of system components, and solar thermal systems located on residential, agricultural, and business properties. Now that does not include this cap I mentioned. If you wanted to put a 30 megawatt or whatever cap on
I don't, not in my motion, so let's leave the cap out of there.
That's something that could be amended from the floor if it was having trouble at town meeting.
Right. So.
Okay, that's your motion?
That's my motion.
I'm going to get a copy.
You got it right there, yeah. That was in his.
Nobody wants to second that. I'll second that just for discussion.
Okay, then discussion.
I'd sort of like to make a friendly amendment to that, if we could. If we could put, if they don't get their signatures in by tomorrow afternoon, we put this on. I'd like to see it come in as signatures.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? It's just because I'd like to see it. I would like to see it come to a vote at town meeting, and I don't want it not come to a vote because they didn't get the signatures.
Right,
But
but
I
I
think
don't want them to go home.
And say we've got it on now.
We could sleep late tomorrow morning, we don't have to take
I
those
want it to
petitions
work,
around.
right.
Right, while
Well, I think-
I'm up.
I think what Tom was
Milking it.
suggesting was that the board support it.
Support the concept or support getting it on town warning?
That we put it on the town warning.
I think both. Am I wrong?
Yeah, that you put it on the town warning, and you can do it without comment, you know, you can just present it at town meeting and not speak for it. We've done that kind of thing before. And allow.
I think we'd like,
We
well,
would call on
Green
you to
Mountain
speak about it,
Camp, we
or
have
Alex.
some
Yeah, yeah, whoever's there, or against it.
You coming to town meeting?
I am.
So, you going through with that friendly amendment? You've made a friendly
I
amendment?
made a friendly amendment to that.
Mr. Holliday? And I'll drive past your house in the morning to see if you're out there with your...
We tried to get Nelson out of bed. Now he was really sick.
You know what, I think it'd be a pleasant surprise if you get your signatures, but I won't take the friendly amendment.
Would you accept the friendly amendment that we would exempt only systems under 25 kilowatt? It didn't sound like you would.
Well, I don't know what the rationale, I don't like an arbitrary cap, you know, the 10, and so people all over the state building 9.9s.
Right. But it sounds like anybody doing it, if I can paraphrase Tom, that if you're doing one for a home for yourself, that 25 would be a high enough number to run most households. Am I?
Oh, it would take care of, like, say, 90-some% of them. It's just like a system like mine, which is engineered to also run the heat pumps.
Right, yeah.
Then it gets a lot bigger. So, like I say, when you start putting these caps in there, you do start messing with the engineer's mind a little bit.
I'll withdraw my friendly amendment.
Yeah, and 10 years ago, everybody was talking megabytes, you know, now it's gigabytes, so there's no way to predict that, so, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I withdrew it.
Oh, you did. I don't think
What
anybody's
about-
ever.
But I don't know if I can
debated
accept.
anything.
I don't know if I can support the motion.
No,
Okay, what
I'm
about
asking you.
industrial arrays, where, like the one going down by the bridge in Brattleboro, that's going to be several acres. You know, a business, Green Lantern, wants to come in and build on some of that nice rural commercial land on, you know, Nelson's land or something, build that. Would we, rather than a homeowner who just happens to have a big array, or
Well, they would, under the statute, not be exempt.
they would not be exempt?
Yeah, like,
Okay.
Even
like
if
Tom
the town
said,
exempted them,
Okay.
they cannot be exempt.
All right.
because Tom doesn't own his,
Yeah.
he's not exempt. It's some Bodetton company that owns it. I don't know who that is. But.
So we've got the
Nasty
motion.
piece of work.
We've got the motion with no limit on it. Did we get a second on that?
Yeah, oh, I seconded it, it's just for
Seconded.
discussion.
Okay, offered friendly amendments. 2 friendly amendments have been shot down.
Oh, the one withdrawn.
One withdrawn. Okay. Any further
Sorry, Louis.
discussion?
I apologize.
I just would like to see this come in as a petition.
I would too.
So would I, that's why I put my friendly amendment there.
Yeah, yeah. But do you want to have a special meeting tomorrow at 4:45? In case they don't come through. And then they can take us out to dinner or something.
Ooh, Brad, corruption. What is this, Tammany Hall?
I already have a meeting at 4 tomorrow.
I don't want a special meeting tomorrow.
Just do the right thing.
Okay.
Did I say that?
All right. We're done with discussion? Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Aye.
Abstaining? These things aren't working. I don't know. I don't know what batteries in, but
I said aye.
all right. The ayes have it.
So 3-2?
Right.
Wasn't going to because you should have agreed with mine.
Thank you, guys. I don't think you'll regret it.
Where are we
So
going
since you
tomorrow
don't need
night?
this now, can I take it so I can have the wording?
Dinner at the Historical Society tomorrow. Rabbit stew from
Maybe
1785.
Maybe we'll have the 85 anyway.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
We have a letter of agreement from the CAMA. And I can't remember what the heck is CAMA. I knew this afternoon.
You're witnessing that I'm doing it.
Oh, that's the,
Yep.
Oh,
No, he's not. Geez, don't worry about it.
don't hurry, Bill, but we'll see you later.
we already signed the paperwork for it.
I just don't know why I'm always on the low side of
He's
the road.
tearing it off to
I don't know who you are.
for the day. It's what they said.
Okay.
So you don't need the signature, so you're sure to get it?
I don't see why we can't.
It's right there. It's under,
Yeah.
discussion for action and review. What one you got right here, Zeke?
I've got Trans-Canada and I've got liquor.
What do you got here?
I don't know.
No, that's here in the new business. You want to use correspondence for information.
Should change my motion.
Okay, to change my motion.
I didn't see it.
Information, for action, discussion and
Right.
action.
See, I think you guys just jerk me around. Hand me the wrong folders. You know I can't do this. Okay.
It has a sticky on it for a signature.
Okay, computer-assisted mass appraisal. This is for the NEMRIC system. It will cost $238.
We already approved, we've already approved that under the, on the warrants. They need a signature on that.
Okay. Please sign. All right.
Chairman, it says chairman only.
All right.
The annual contract.
And all that work.
Did anyone
No.
make a motion?
I'll make a motion that we sign the CAMA.
I'll second that. Okay, discussion. I've got my pen posed. I'm going to, like Lyndon Johnson, use 70 pens to sign this.
Did you ask for a vote yet?
Yeah, I did. Play the tape back. Did we vote on this already?
I've never seen Zeke punchy. It's a little
Punchy.
punchy. in bed
Getting
by
late.
now. Statistical
Yeah.
bastion too.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I think the ayes have it. 14, all right. Trans-Canada appeal. This is in reference to our needing to sign.
No, this one is the notice of the meeting at Wyndham Regional on
Oh
February
yeah,
3rd.
notice of a meeting of Wyndham Regional. I could have told you that. February 2nd?
February 3rd.
3rd.
At
Day after
10:30.
Groundhog's Day, and it's going to be
At
in
Wyndham-
Brattleboro
at
at
Wyndham Regional.
10:30.
Yes.
Right? So I have some memory left. Might be good to go to. I'll go to that. Nobody else wants to.
The listers are going to attend, at least Charlotte is.
Oh, well, maybe we can carpool.
I might go with you if it's
Okay.
not a day to be in the sugar lot.
All right, good. New business. Review, possibly approve town plan and zoning bylaw updates. Do you want to do that, or you want to go through the rest of the business first?
Let's go through the rest of the business first. Isn't it getting a little late?
Yeah. Review contract with George Sansucci for expert witness testimony in the Trans-Canada tax appeal. The state apparently picks up the tab for that.
I'll make a motion that we review and sign the contract. Actually, I think we've already reviewed it, so just sign the contract.
Yep, signed. No, I know it's not there. Did you guys shuffle these?
No, we didn't, no.
New business?
Yeah.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There's that. Seems like the ayes have it. Review the 2013 audit results from Sullivan and Powers. Did everyone have a chance to go through
Yeah, looked really good. It was
Yeah. You
pretty.
look like you're a star.
Well, there was a couple things. Let's not go too
That
far
was just
making this
verbiage.
star right.
That
you know.
was verbiage, yeah.
I just don't want to.
Well done.
Yes,
Yeah, it
Town
was
treasurer.
very,
Well
very
done.
good.
Well done.
a few minor things that,
It's already been taken care of, I think. A couple of things were already taken care of that were on there.
okay. Do you, other than that, any further discussion about that?
Can we put a well done in the minutes? Well done to the treasurer.
Okay, so, review and give preliminary approval for the 2014 town meeting warrant.
Which you really can't do now because we have to have this before you sign it.
If we added that, could we vote to authorize just one person to come in?
All five of you have to sign the warrant to be posted. But you could probably give approval with this addition, and then once it's added, you could stop in and sign it.
Okay.
Can we sign the noted piece?
No, because it's going to put,
Yeah, you
it's
got
going to
the
make it,
official one.
put it onto 2 pages now.
When does it need to be signed?
Early next week. I think it has to be posted by the end of next week, legally.
So, could we vote to approve it with that addition, unless something comes in,
Tomorrow by 5.
yeah,
Yeah.
and then we just come in and sign it when we're coming back?
So
Friday,
moved.
Tuesday.
That's with the 3-2 voted addition tonight. So moved.
Second,
Any further discussion?
one friendly amendment to that one, Bill? Dirty dog.
Remember, I don't have to stay for the whole.
Lucky you! Sit back down.
You're far behind you, Tom.
Nice, Tom.
Good night, thank you for your time.
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, let's shut this and we'll find it again now. We have the tobacco license renewal application for Circle K.
I'll make a motion that we,
Do we
go out
have
of, our regular
Select board?
meeting, select board meeting, and go into
reconvene?
the, liquor commission.
Second. All those in favor?
Aye.
8:51.
Okay.
If you hustle, we can get this done in the same minute.
Yeah.
I'll confuse the readers.
We have a tobacco license renewal from Circle K.
I'll make a motion that we approve the Circle K tobacco license.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Make a motion that we adjourn the liquor commission and return to select board meeting.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, coming back to the select board. Okay, well, then we just go back up to the town plan and zoning bylaw updates.
I would move we accept the zoning bylaw updates. As
There was no dissension on that at all. I will second that.
Okay, discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? That's done. Okay. Now, the town plan, what would you like to do, the corridor maps? I don't recall any discussion, anyone looking for changes on the Route 30 corridor.
Well, no, you can't say that because there was written testimony about
Let's see.
the Route 30.
Oh, for
Well,
loose
yeah, one
services,
piece,
that's right.
yeah.
Okay.
There was written
All right.
testimony, so.
So, we can go back.
I-
However you want to approach this.
I'm just thinking it's getting late tonight, and I wouldn't mind taking this to another meeting.
Yeah, not necessarily because it's getting late either, but we ought to have a chance to clear our heads and
Right,
come back with some decent ideas. So I would table it to another meeting. I don't need a motion for that,
All right,
if it's okay.
how's everyone with that?
I'm good with that.
Okay, our next meeting is February 5th.
At the Dummerston School, 6 o'clock.
We'll have a presentation by Green Lantern for solar arrays. And then our regular meeting, and we can continue with this.
We do have the energy committee coming to that meeting as well.
Energy Committee,
Gerald's.
Lantern, School Board, and this board.
Right, no, I mean, after the presentation, the energy committee wants to make a presentation to the, remember Geraldine sent you that email, they want to update you on the survey?
Yeah, I guess you're right.
Yep. Okay, Blackstone was keeping notes. All right, and we got some letters earlier today on the town plan amendments to
We got some letters after some people have already left
this year.
for the mapping here. We got some letters after people had already left.
Okay.
Right, after you'd already come in and gone through the packet.
Okay, good. Okay, great. So that'll give us time to read those over. Well, gentlemen,
Maybe
is
just
there,
see those letters?
is there any,
Sure, I can email them to you.
yeah, the public
Sure.
record?
Yeah, that was for.
Is there any other business?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Right.
56.